Hello, and welcome to GreenBiz Studio. My name's Sarah Golden, and I'm the Senior Energy Analyst at GreenBiz. I am delighted to be joined today by Will Thorburn, who's the Director of Clean Tech Strategy and Investment at Cox Enterprises. So Will, welcome. To start us out, can you tell me a little bit about what Cox Enterprises does?
Cox Enterprises is close to 125 years old, founded in 1898 by Governor James Cox as a newspaper, actually. And we, in the early 1900s, were a media business. Newspaper, we got into radio, eventually moved into television and automotive. And so today, what we have are two operating divisions. One is a cable business, Cox Communications. That's a $11 or $12 billion revenue company. I think the third or fourth largest cable company in the country. We also have an automotive operating division. We own Auto Trader, Kelley Blue Book, Mannheim Auto Auctions, and 15 or 20 other brands that you probably wouldn't be familiar with unless you were an automotive dealer. And so those are really our two operating businesses. And then Cox Enterprises is the parent company that sits sort of on top of those.
So it sounds like Cox is a dynamic company, and you've been through a lot of these different iterations. Seems like you're in a bit of a transition period right now. So can you tell me a little bit more about your strategy in investing around these sustainable business practices?
I think it's important to understand as we think about why we're building this clean tech business, two things, maybe three things. One is that the family that owns the business, we're 100% owned by a family. Our CEO is fourth generation. His great-grandfather was the founder. His name is Alex Taylor. His uncle, Jim Kennedy, is the chairman of the board. The family is very, very focused on conservation and sustainability and has been for generations dating back to the founding of the company. So we have a real passion around sustainability. That passion led us to launch an effort that we call Cox Conserves in the early 2000s. I think that effort is 15 to 20 years old at this point, where we built a team, internal team, focused on greening our operations towards zero waste and carbon and water neutrality goals. And then in 2017, we launched the Cox Clean Tech effort, which I'm a part of. I'm lucky to be a part of. And that effort was really part of the growth and diversification story. We have a history of, over the last 100 some years, of making pretty bold moves to create growth for the organization. We're in another growth phase now. And when we think about areas in which we want to diversify and grow, when we combine that passion for conservation, that history of bold decision making, the experience we have through Cox Conserves, I think it was always sort of natural that one of our growth pillars would be in clean tech.
Will, could you give me some examples of the types of things you're investing in right now and what you're most excited about?
Yeah, great. That's a great question too. A lot of things. Right now is an exciting time to be investing in clean tech. We've made, over the last few years, I think 6 or 7 investments. They've tended to be in the venture or growth equity stage, so pretty early stage. And what we've been doing is developing investment theses that we feel confident in. Think of controlled environment agriculture as one. And the investment there would be a company called Bright Farms. Waste to X is another investment thesis. Investments there would be Nexus or Sierra Energy. We've developed these theses, made investments, and what we're doing is building conviction in the companies we've invested in, the sectors in which we're invested, with the intention of eventually building an operating platform that we own and operate. Some of these investments are in areas where I think it's really easy to see the potential for environmental impact and really the potential for some of these technologies to change the world in the future. An area where that's really easy to see is waste. If you think about landfills, for example, they're the, I think, third largest emitter of methane, human-caused methane emissions in the U.S. We're also running out of landfill space. And so when you think about our practices for dealing with waste, like, what do you do, right? Sierra Energy, a company we invested in alongside Breakthrough Energy Ventures, is developing a really novel, I think potentially really impactful gasification technology to manage and process landfill bound waste streams into what we call syngas, synthesis gas, which can be converted to hydrogen, electricity, any number of energy related products, and essentially create landfill diversion. So something like that, you can imagine how it could scale and have a big impact on methane and waste management practices. We're looking for technologies like that.
That's great. And it also sounds like it's a great alternative to the way that we currently deal with a lot of trash, which is just to burn it to make energy. So it seems like this is a solution that could really be lowering pollution. So you had mentioned that you have these theses. Can you give me an idea of these subject areas for your theses right now? Like right now, what are your overarching theses as you see it as the most important markets to be accelerating sustainability?
And so we focus our efforts in, we call them verticals, so energy, food and ag, water, and waste. And then increasingly we're thinking about, I'll call it the EHS or ESG sector, essentially software tools to help large organizations like ours manage and account for their sustainability actions. Within each of those verticals, we have theses or sub-vertical areas of focus. So within energy, for instance, digital energy services is an area we really like. We're invested in a company called Carbon Lighthouse. Carbon Lighthouse has a really unique solution to essentially gather data about a commercial building, thermodynamic data, and run it through a proprietary algorithm where they prescribe, really diagnose energy inefficiencies and then prescribe solutions to that. So think of Carbon Lighthouse as in the same way you would tune your car to make it more fuel efficient. They're tuning buildings and making them more energy efficient. So that's an area. Digital energy services, controlled environment agriculture, which I mentioned, waste conversion or waste to X, as we call it, which is essentially taking any waste stream and converting it into something of value that can be sold, like you said, Sarah, in a way that doesn't create harmful emissions or harmful byproducts. We've also invested in areas around soil nutrition and health. We've got an investment in a company called Growers Edge, which is, think of Growers Edge as almost gap insurance for farmers, which we think is a really important tool to help encourage more sustainable practices on the farm. And so we're looking for areas in all of those sort of macro verticals where we can create growth in a way that has some greater good associated with it.
Well, Will, it's always such a pleasure to chat with you, and thank you for all the work that you're doing for Green Biz Studio. I'm Sarah Golden.